Everyone. Thank you for joining this evening. Thank you for having me. So I did this training back on June 28th, you'll see, for the ODEP Neon grant. So it's the same PowerPoint that I'm using, and this is a similar PowerPoint that I used for the Department of Developmental Services as well when I did a training. So let's see. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, I put a quick slide in here about who SCDD is. That's a State Council on Developmental Disabilities. We're established by state and federal law, and we provide advocacy, capacity building, and systems change. So we don't provide individual advocacy assistance any longer. That's something that we did in the past prior to 2015. We no longer do the individual advocacy. We now focus on kind of the bigger picture systems advocacy, such as some of the work that Judy mentioned that we're working on in terms of trying to make some fixes within the Social Security system, because then it affects, more folks, right? So we're really focused on kind of the bigger picture in terms of systems change advocacy. So some things to keep in mind as we go through this presentation, and I just want to make note too that some of the language that's used in here is the language that Social Security uses. So it's not necessarily my language, but I think it's important to use the language that the Social Security Administration uses, just so if you hear it from them, you're already kind of familiar with it. But some things to kind of keep in mind as we start this process is we always want people to work. Um, it's absolutely okay to apply for benefits, right? No problem in terms of applying for benefits, getting on SSI benefits. But we also need to encourage those that we work with, our loved ones, or if you're a person with a disability, to work, right? The benefit should never replace working. It should supplement the person's work earnings. So through work, obviously, we build a sense of community, right? We have something to do during the day. We have some type of purpose, and it's, whatever work the person wants to do at whatever extent or capacity they're able to, whether that's 10 hours a week or whether that's 40 hours a week. I think the bottom line through this presentation is we certainly do want our loved ones to work. And work as much as they're able. And then you'll see through this presentation that there's a lot of work incentives that Social Security actually offers to help people work, although it's kind of, it's a complicated web. However, there's a lot of incentives to make sure that people are able to retain their benefits and still work at the same time. So obviously through working, you're going to break the cycle of SSI poverty. I'm guessing most of you have heard this in the past, but if you're on SSI benefits, they have a resource limit of $2,000. You can't save more than $2,000 if a person is on SSI benefits. However, you can do that now through an ABLE account, right? Or through a special needs trust, for example. But if you work, you could certainly break the cycle of SSI poverty. We don't want people with disabilities to live in poverty the rest of their life. We want people to be able to save money into an asset protected account like an ABLE account or a special needs trust, because by working you're going to have improved financial outcomes. The person, I should say, is going to have improved financial outcomes, and they'll also be able to keep their insurance. I think the most common question we receive is, if my loved one with a disability works, they're going to lose their Medi-Cal insurance. But honestly, it is so difficult to lose the Medi-Cal insurance, and we'll talk about that later in terms of the thresholds, but it's very difficult to actually lose the Medi-Cal insurance. So really, the likelihood of losing it is slim, and as a result, the person's going to be able to work, continue to be able to save money and break that cycle of poverty. They'll be able to continue receiving their Medi-Cal insurance to pay for co-payments, doctor's visits, therapies, things like that. Through work, we obviously make meaningful connections with others. I think I kind of mentioned that. Person will obviously have more money, hopefully for, saving, spending, a little bit of both. And again, just most importantly, a person can work and collect benefits and retain their Medi-Cal insurance. So before we get started and kind of go through some of the work incentives, just for those of you that are here that maybe don't have benefits yet, right? If you don't have SSI or if you don't have a Title II benefit yet, I want to go through kind of the eligibility process. And everybody knows that every agency has their own eligibility criteria, right? Special education, there's its own eligibility criteria to qualify for special ed services. Regional center has its own eligibility criteria. Similarly, Social Security Administration, they have their own eligibility criteria, which they call the five-step sequential evaluation process. But the way Social Security defines disability, and this is for somebody on um, SSDI, childhood disability benefits, or SSI benefits, the definition of disability is the same. So, regardless of what type of disability benefit the person is applying um, for all individuals, children, or adults, the definition of disability is the same. And Social Security defines that disability as the inability to engage in any substantial gainful activity by reason of any medically determinable physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to result in death, or which has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. So, substantial gainful activity, that's a federal threshold amount. In 2023, substantial gainful activity for somebody that is not blind is $1,470 a month. And for somebody that is blind, that the SGA, substantial gainful activity, is $2,460 a month. So I'm going to explain to you how that actually looks in practice through the five-step sequential evaluation process. So this is sequential. It's not like you could meet, you can't say I meet steps 1, step 3, step 5. You have to meet all the steps in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the process Social Security uses in terms of determining whether somebody is eligible for benefits, or is the person eligible for a disability benefit. So step 1 in the process, they want to know, is the person working? And if that person is working, they must be earning less than substantial gainful activity in order to be eligible for SSI or SSDI benefits. And again, in 2013, for somebody that's not blind, it's $1,470 a month. For somebody that's blind, substantial gainful activity is $2,460 a month. So if the person is not working, or if they're earning less than that threshold amount, then Social Security Administration will move on to the next step in the process, the second step in the sequential evaluation process. However, if an individual is engaging in substantial gainful activity, so if a person is making $1,470 per month or more, Social Security says that that person is not disabled, regardless of the severity of their physical or mental impairment, regardless of their age, education, or work experience. So 1470 is the threshold for step 1 in the process. So step 2 in the process is they want to know if the person's medical condition is severe. And Social Security defines that as the medical condition is severe if it significantly limits the person's physical or mental ability to perform basic work activities. And again, there's that duration requirement. It has to be expected to last at least 12 consecutive months or result in death. And they're also looking at areas which are included in this function report. And we'll talk about the function report more later, but that's an application that a parent fills out, and then also the person with a disability fills it out. But this function report directly correlates to step 2 of the sequential evaluation process, because this function report is asking what the person's ability is to walk, the person's ability to concentrate, to understand directions, to follow directions. Are they able to stand for a long period of time? Are they able to sit for a long period of time? How much can they lift in terms of weight? So The function report that the caregiver, parent generally fills out, that directly correlates to step 2. And that's why it's really important when a parent completes the function report, they are very accurate in terms of describing what the needs are, because Social Security wants to know if that medical condition is severe. So the next step, so assuming the medical condition is severe, right, you move on to step 3 in the process, and that's if the person's medical condition is on the list of impairments. Autism spectrum disorders, they're on the listing of impairments. There is a blue book. Social Security has this whole blue book that has pretty much every single medical condition that one could think of. And obviously, autism is included in that blue book. The next step in the sequential evaluation process is they want to know, can the person do the work they did before? So if the person had work, if they did work in the past, regardless of where it was at, Social Security wants to know, can that person do that type of work again? And it's also referred to as their residual functional capacity. But it's the person's ability to do physical and mental work activities on a sustained basis, despite limitations caused by the impairment. So in this step, in step 4, Social Security is considering all the person's disabilities diagnosis in this step. So it's important when you complete an application, you're not just listing that the person has autism, for example, but maybe if they have a central auditory processing disorder, if they also have ADHD, when you're completing the application, you want to list every single kind of diagnosis, if you will, that any doctor has ever given in the past, because that's what Social Security is looking at in step 4. Can the person do any of the work that they did before? And they're going to look at kind of the totality of the person's medical condition. So it's important that you kind of list everything out, just for the sake of trying to get your application approved the first time around. So in step 5, at this point, the burden actually shifts over to Social Security Administration. So no longer are you having to prove these things. At step 5, if you get to that level, then the burden shifts over to Social Security Administration. And the question is, can the person do any other type of work? So maybe they can't do the type of work that they did before, but given that person's age, given that person's education, given that person's prior work experience, can that person make some type of adjustment in order to perform some other work? And if the person is unable to make any adjustment to perform another type of work, then Social Security, if the person can make an adjustment to perform another type of work, then Social Security will say that the person is not disabled. But if the person cannot make any adjustments to perform another type of work, Social Security will say that the person has a disability that meets their threshold. So that is the 5-step sequential evaluation process of how Social Security determines eligibility. For all of you in the room that don't have Social Security yet or have Social Security disability benefits, this is the process Social Security uses in terms of identifying whether you or your loved one would meet criteria eligibility for benefits. So let's start now with SSI benefits, because generally speaking, what happens is when our loved one, either if you're a person with a disability or if you're a parent, once your loved one turns 18 years old, generally speaking, your 18-year-old has very little income and resources, right? I mean, if they have worked, they've probably worked minimally. And they generally, because they're only 18 years old, they usually don't have a whole lot of resources. So most people start off on SSI benefits. That's usually how it works. The person will start on SSI benefits, and somewhere down the road, they'll probably transition over to what we call a Title II benefit. So this is kind of a snapshot of what SSI is. The acronym stands for Supplemental Security Income. It's a benefit based on need, and it's financed by general revenues. It's for people that have, again, limited income and limited resources, and that's where that $2,000 comes into play for somebody that's not married. Automatically attached to SSI is Medi-Cal. So the moment a person is eligible for SSI benefits in California, they will automatically and instantaneously get Medi-Cal insurance, because Social Security realizes this person is low income, low resource, and they're obviously going to need insurance to pay for medical and health needs. SSI, it's paid for anybody that has a disability, that's blind, or if their Social Security says elderly, which is over 65. And it's a benefit amount based on federal and state law. So here in California, California supplements on top of the federal benefit rate. So it's the benefit amount depends on what state you live in. And other income may affect benefits. So for SSI benefits, you really kind of have to report any income the person gets, and you also have to report any changes too. Because they pay based on living arrangement. And the SSI break even point is $2,352.46 per month. And what this means is if a person is working, and if they make $2,352.46 per month, they're going to get a zero SSI cash payment. So once a person gets this gross income per month, they will receive a zero SSI cash payment. They'll still keep their Medi-Cal. That's called the break-even point. This is just a slide kind of on what limited income and limited resources is. Social Security actually won't count the person's house that they live in, and they also won't count the person's first car, just so you know. But let me just kind of show you what it looks like in practice. So I'm going to skip this slide just so I could kind of show you what it looks like through an example. So in this example, John is 28 years old. He gets $1,300 per month in gross income. He works at a pet store. He lives in his own apartment. He has no other income. So this is the general SSI formula. Okay, so John's gross wages are the $1,300. Social Security subtracts $20 and $65. That's the general income exclusion and earned income exclusion. Once you subtract out the $85, it's $1,215. And you divide that by 2 to determine the countable earned income, which is $607.50. That is John Doe's countable income. So because John lives in his own apartment, he gets no other income. The maximum SSI benefit for 2023 for an adult that's in independent living status, they live in their own apartment, is $1,133.73. That's the maximum somebody in independent living can receive. Social Security is going to subtract out John's countable income, and he's going to get an SSI payment of $526.23. So yes, his work does, and how much he makes at his job does affect how much SSI cash payment he's going to get. However, once you add on the $1,300 in his gross wages, he comes out with $1,826.23. So if John didn't work, and he stayed home and he played his Xbox or Nintendo all day long, right? He's going to get $1,133.73. If he stayed at home, didn't work, just collected a SSI, he's going to get the $1,133. Because John's working, now he gets to add his work wages on top of it, and he gets $1,826, right? So he's ahead close to $700 by working. And after his current needs are met, he's able to put away some of that money in a CalAble account. So this is why I'm saying it breaks the cycle of SSI poverty, because maybe that $700 or maybe even more than the $700, after he pays for all of his current needs, he could put the rest of the money away in a CalAble account. And in a CalAble account, you could save up to $100,000 and still receive public benefits and still have access to all your public benefits. Because we don't expect people to do the SSI formula on their own, California DV 101 has a income calculator. They have like an SSI calculator on their website, and you could find it here. And these are all the work incentives that Social Security offers. On the left-hand side, it's for SSI benefits. On the right-hand side, it's for Title II benefits. I'm going to cover the most common work incentives for SSI. And a little later, I'm going to explain to you Title II benefits, what that program looks like, and the work incentives for that. Because as I mentioned earlier, most of our loved ones, they're going to start on SSI benefits. And at some point in time, they will transition over to Title II benefits. So for right now, let's stick to the SSI and let's kind of talk about that. And let's go through some of the most common work incentives. So for those of you that have students that has a student under the age of 22 that regularly attends school, there's a fantastic work incentive called the student earned income exclusion. This is by far, for me at least, the best work incentive Social Security kind of really offers. And this work incentive, it allows a person who's under the age of 22 and regularly attending school, which is defined below, to exclude a specified amount of gross earned income per month up to a maximum annual exclusion. So if the person is in a college or university, regularly attending school means 8 hours a week. If they're in grade 7 to 12 or in like a workability adult transition program at school, it's at least 12 hours a week. If they're in some type of vocational training course, 12 hours a week. If the course involves some type of lab or shop, it's 15 hours. And it could also be for less time than these measurements. If the person's disability kind of prevents them from attending at this level, right? Attending school at these hours. In 2023, the amount that Social Security will exclude is $2,220 monthly, up to a yearly maximum of $8,950. So let me show you what that actually looks like in practice. So here's an example. This is Jim. Jim's a student. He earns $2,220 a month in June, July, and August of 2023. And because Jim is regularly attending school, right, June, July, August, those are the summer months. So he's able to work more hours. So he works more hours during the summer. In those months, he gets the $2,220. In September, he returns back to school and he works and he goes back to working part-time because he started school again. So September, October, November, December, he earns $900 a month. So how this looks is, I told you earlier that the student earned income exclusion will exclude $2,220, right, of the earnings per month up to this annual yearly maximum. So in June, July, August, Jim is going to get his work wages of $22.20 per month. Plus, he's going to get his full SSI benefit. The SEIE completely wipes out his work income. So he gets to keep his entire work income, plus he gets his full SSI benefit. In September and October, he makes his $900 a month and he still gets his full SSI benefit. So in November, because through October, he's used $8,460 of his $8,950 yearly limit, right? So that's why in November, we're only excluding $490 for the SEIE. And then after we exclude that, we're going to do the formula, and using the federal benefit rate, he's going to get his $900 in work wages, plus he's also going to get a benefit, his SSI payment of $751.50. And at that point, at the end of November, he's used up his yearly SEIE limit. So in December, Jim makes the $900. That regular SSI formula is going to apply because now he's used up all of his student earned income exclusion. The student earned income exclusion, it allows students to test their ability to work without having any reduction in the monthly SSI check, which you saw. So if any of you have students regularly attending school that are under 22 years old, this is just a great work incentive because they're able to save so much money through this process up until the point that they turn 22 or they stop regularly attending school. And this is my little, work wages plus the benefit plus job experience, right? Because it's great that, our loved ones are getting job experience too, skills enhancement, success, right? And Department of Rehab can certainly help provide job coaching, job development services. So connect with Department of Rehabilitation for their student services. Connect with regional center if your child or adult child has regional center. Connect with regional center for employment services also. But this is a great work incentive that I wish more people utilized because it could get people to save money at a much earlier age. The next work incentive I'm going to cover is called the PASS plan. It's called a plan to achieve self-support. And it could help pay for things needed to reach a work goal. The money that's set aside in a PASS plan does not affect the SSI payment. A PASS plan must be pre-approved by Social Security Administration. That's key to this process is the PASS must be pre-approved. So here's an example of wages being excluded under an approved PASS plan. Billy wants to go to school to become a social worker. He works part-time, earns $665 a month. Social Security determines Billy's countable income using that earned income formula, which is the 665 minus 20 minus 65 minus the 85 total, right? And it's 580. And we're going to divide that by 2 to determine his countable income, which is $290. So Billy's earned income reduces his SSI benefit. And in this example, I'm using the federal benefit rate. So this is the federal amount. It's going to reduce his SSI benefit of $914 by $290 per month for an SSI payment of $624. So it's $914 minus the $290 in his countable income, and his SSI payment is $624. However, Billy agrees to spend the $290 in countable income on education so he could become a social worker, and Social Security approves the PASS plan for him. Social Security sets aside this income, and his SSI increases by $290 a month for the PASS time frame. And Billy then gets his full $914 in SSI benefits. He has $290 set aside in his PASS account for PASS expenses, and he receives his work wages on top of that as $665. This is another very popular work incentive, but it's underutilized, unfortunately. The next work incentive is the Medicaid while working. It's section 1619B. But one of the biggest concerns that we always hear is that they are very concerned that their loved one or the SSI beneficiary, if they work, and if they work too much, they're going to lose their Medicaid coverage. A lot of people don't necessarily, losing the SSI cash payment for them isn't as important for some folks as losing the actual Medi-Cal coverage, because that's what's paying for, the doctor's visits, the medications, things like that. But 1619B of the Social Security Act, it provides protection. And essentially, to continue to qualify for Medi-Cal coverage, a person must have been eligible for an SSI cash payment for at least 1 month, which, yes, it always happens. They still have to meet the disability requirement. The disability, generally speaking, has not gone away, so they would still meet the disability requirement. They also have to meet any other non-disability requirements, such as the resource limit, and they need their Medicaid benefits to continue to work, which absolutely all of us need health insurance, because if we don't have health insurance, one doctor's visit plus the medications might put us out. The person also has to have gross earnings of less than $56,758 per year. And that amount is deemed insufficient to replace SSI benefits. So if the person is earning less than $56,758, they will still be able to retain their Medi-Cal insurance. And as a matter of fact, a person can't even make more than that amount, provided they had a lot of kind of deductions, and they had a lot of out of pocket expenses, right, related to therapies and things like that that aren't covered by insurance. So if a person has been ineligible for SSI payments due to work, they might be able to restart their SSI cash payment again at any time without doing a new application, because I'll show you later, the SSI application is a very tedious process, and most people only want to do it once in their lifetime if they have to. So this work incentive, it's reinstating eligibility without having to complete a new application. If the person has 12, and they have 12 months to restart the SSI cash payment if they've been ineligible for any reason other than work. After 12 months, they have to start a new application. And I will tell people that it sounds great in theory, but sometimes in practice, there's more hiccups along the way. Right. So expedited reinstatement, that's another work incentive that's available. But again, same kind of caution applies. Sometimes it's a bumpy road to get the expedited reinstatement, but it's a safety net for people that successfully return to work and they lose their entitlement to SSI benefits or SSDI benefits and payments. And if cash payments ended because of work and earnings, and the person stops work within 5 years of when their benefits ended, they may be able to have benefits started again right away, in quotes, through the expedited reinstatement process. So, sometimes a person with a disability, they are successfully working, they're doing great on the job, and something happens, right? Some trauma might happen, or something happens in their life, and that person kind of starts to they start to, I just lost the word, they're no longer able to work at the level that they were working in the past, right? Because something happened, they're just no longer able to do it. They have high stress at that point, whatever the case may be, and they're no longer able to continue working at the level they were because of their disability, mental health, whatever. So through expedited reinstatement, this enables a person to have their benefits started right away through this process, and Social Security will offer a 6-month provisional benefit pending a medical review also. So you could get provisional benefits paid during this EXR time that don't need to be paid back either. These are the typical forms for an SSI adult application. So for those of you that have not yet applied for SSI benefits, these are the forms that are required. You are able to start the SSI application process online. You cannot finish the SSI application online. So you could start the SSI application online, can't finish it online. But these are the forms that Social Security requires. The SSA 8000, that's kind of the main application. It's like a 11 or 10 page application, and it goes through everything. It goes through, name, address, bank accounts. It goes through kind of all that personal identifying information. The next form, it's called the third party function report. And that's generally filled out by a parent or a caregiver or somebody that knows the person the best, which generally is the parent. And that's also what Social Security was doing in step 2 of that sequential evaluation process, where they're asking about the person's ability to comprehend, understand directions, sit, walk. In the function report, Social Security, some of the questions also involve, does the person make their own meals? Are they able, do you have pets? Is the person able to take care of pets? Do they do yard work? It goes into all these questions. And there's also a disability report, which just goes into, diagnosis, disability, medications, doctors, things like that. And there is also a form that the individual with a disability, they must complete it on their own to the best of their ability. It's the same, it's a function report. The 3373 is exactly the same report as that third party function report, exactly the same application. One is completed by the parent and one is completed by the person with a disability to the best of their ability. So whatever they're able to do to complete that form, they have to do it to the best of their ability. I have seen over the years a lot of parents that completed that form for their loved one. And then it looks like the person with a disability is able to answer all these questions themselves and, write long, complicated sentences, things like that. And that's not the purpose of the form. The purpose of the form is, having the individual with a disability complete the form to the best of their ability. And whether that's, I've had people draw on it, I've had people write X marks on it, I've had people write, I don't know on it. It's whatever they can do is how they're completing that form. You also have to fill out a form a consent form that allows Social Security to request medical records, because the cornerstone of Social Security's disability evaluation process is medical records. They want to make sure there is medical evidence. So you do have to sign a release of information for Social Security to request medical records from physicians. So it's important that you write down physicians that know your child the best. You don't want to write down, maybe the pediatrician that only sees your child or adult child for urgent care visits, cough, flu, things like that. You want to provide, the psychologist, neurologist, doctors that really understand your loved one's disability or your disability. So if you start the process online, because a lot of people like to start the process online, what happens is the Social Security representative, they'll call you and they'll schedule an appointment with you to help you apply for benefits. And they'll go through the rest of the process by phone, and then they'll mail you out these forms that I shared. So that's the typical process for an SSI application. So now we're going to shift gears. So at some point in your life or in your loved one's life with a disability, eventually they're going to transition off of SSI benefits onto what we call Title II benefits. And Title II benefits, there's two primary benefits. It's Social Security disability insurance or childhood disability benefits. So same kind of things, right? We still want the person to work. Working long enough is going to enable the person to collect benefits off of their own work record. There's no resource limit for SSDI benefits or CDB benefits, but some of the person's other means tested benefits may have a resource limit. So I caution saying there is no resource limit for Social Security for a Title II benefit. But some of their other means tested benefits may have that resource limit. So this is the difference between SSI and Title II benefits. And then I'll talk about some of the work incentives in just a bit. So again, at some point in your life or in your adult child's life, right? They start on SSI benefits, and eventually if that person is working and they're paying into the Social Security system and they're paying FICA taxes this whole time, they might be eligible at some point for Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI benefits. And this is a benefit that's paid to individuals who have worked long enough and they've paid Social Security taxes, provided that they've earned enough credits. And it's an earned benefit based on the person's own work record. So SSI was paid for by general revenues. This is actually an earned benefit based on what somebody has already paid into the system. And if the individual is unable to earn SGA due to the severity of the disability. So SSDI benefits, it's for some, like for example, if something happens to me tomorrow, I've paid FICA taxes for the past 30 years or something like that. I've paid FICA taxes. If I become disabled tomorrow, something happens and I'm disabled tomorrow, I could collect SSDI benefits because I have paid into the system and I'm going to collect out on my own work record now that I have a disability. That's what SSDI is. There's another type of Title II benefit. It's called Childhood Disability Benefits. It was previously called Social Security Disabled Adult Child Benefits, SSDAC benefits. But just to confuse people, years ago, they changed the terminology to childhood disability benefits. And this is an earned benefit for an adult child with a disability whose parent is retired, disabled, or deceased, provided that the parent earned enough work credits and they paid into the system. They paid FICA taxes, but it's paid on the parent's work record. So, at some point, let's say your child loved one, with a disability, at age 18 years old, you're on SSI benefits, right? And let's say at age 30, because I've been working for, at that point, 12 years, let's say from 18 to 30 years old, I've been working, I could then start collecting SSDI benefits because I've paid into the system, right? And now I could start collecting SSDI. Well, at such point that my parent retires and starts collecting their own Social Security benefit, or if they disable and they start collecting their own Social Security benefit, or if they pass away, provided that they have paid into the system, I can then collect off of my parents' work record. So at some point, I might even transition from SSDI benefits onto childhood disability benefits, because generally speaking, the parent is probably going to be a higher income earner than you were, possibly, right? And so you're able to collect a higher benefit amount based on, what your parent has paid into the system. For this benefit, the adult child has to be unmarried, age 18 or older, and have a disability that started prior to the age of 22. So we don't have to necessarily worry about that, unless if your adult child is married. If they are married, then they're not going to be entitled to childhood disability benefits. And that's why a lot of people say there's this kind of marriage penalty for Social Security, not just for this reason, but for also SSI. But that's kind of what that marriage penalty is talking about in part. And after 2 years of somebody receiving a Title II benefit, which is either of these two benefits, the person is going to be automatically eligible for Medicare. So there is a 2-year waiting period. After they're on a Title II benefit, they will start receiving Medicare. And that's why you see people maybe in their 30s or 40s, they have what's called Medi-Medi. They have their Medi-Cal because they're low income and they're under that Medi-Cal income threshold. And they also have Medicare. And that's why they're Medi-Medi. They're receiving the Medicare benefit based on a Title II benefit, either off of their own work record or their parents' work record. So now I'm going to cover some of the most popular work incentives for Title II beneficiaries. And these are all of them on the right-hand side, but I'm just going to cover just kind of the most popular ones. So something that's very important to remember for Title II benefits is when it comes to work earnings, you're either eligible or not eligible for your Title II benefit. For Title II, it's considered an all or nothing benefit. There's no longer that crazy SSI formula, the minus 85 divided by 2. You don't have that. When it comes to Title II benefits, it's you're either eligible or you're not eligible. It's an all or nothing benefit. So these are some of the work incentives that are available to somebody that's on a Title II benefit. The first one is it's called a trial work period. It's a 9-month trial work period, but it starts the first month the individual returns to work. And there's no work incentives that apply during the TWP time, but benefits are paid during the trial work period. Benefits are paid regardless of earnings. And this is a time that's designed for the individual to test their ability to work. And in 2023, a trial work month is counted anytime the person earns $1,050 gross or more in the month. So once the person gets 1050 gross or more, that's considered a trial work month. But again, during this 9-month trial work period, they're going to get that 1050 or whatever their work earnings are, plus they'll get their full Title II benefit, right, during this TWP time. And Social Security must find 9 trial work months, non-consecutive, that fall within a 5-year period before the trial work period is ended. After that, there is this 36-month extended period of eligibility. And the 36 consecutive months begins directly after the end of the person's trial work period. During this time, Social Security will examine the wages each month to determine if substantial gainful activity is achieved. And if the individual achieves SGA, which is the 1470, at the end of the EPE, the Title II benefit is terminated. But during the EPE, so during this 36 extended period of eligibility, any wages above substantial gainful activity are non-payment months. The person's not going to get their Title II benefit. But if their countable earnings are under the SGA level, the individual is entitled to their Title II benefit for that month. It gets complicated, folks. It really does. Trial work period, extended period of eligibility, grace and cessation months. It is very complicated. So I don't expect anybody to leave this training understanding trial work period, EPE, grace cessation months. I'm going to refer you at the end of this to a resource that you should probably utilize instead of trying to figure out the interplay between work and your Title II benefit, because it is confusing. So there's 3 grace months. There's the 3 consecutive months that starts in the first month that EPE of the EPE that SGA is achieved. And the grace month is also considered the cessation month. You're entitled to your Title II benefit during the grace months. And then after the 36-month extended period of eligibility, if your work is below SGA, your Title II benefit continues. If your work is SGA, then the benefit will terminate. And when that happens, there is a safety net called expedited reinstatement. If you're unable to do substantial gainful activity level work within 60 months from the date that your benefit entitlement terminated. However, as I mentioned earlier, expedited reinstatement, sometimes it is a bumpy process in order to utilize. A lot of our loved ones, they utilize, so I'm going to shift gears, okay? And don't get bogged down by the trial work period, EPE. It is so confusing. And there's a chart that I actually had, but I removed from the slide because it was so complicated for folks to understand. It made the process worse. But let me kind of shift a little bit and talk about another very, very common work incentive for people with disabilities on Title II benefits, the SSDI or the childhood disability benefits. And it's called a subsidy or special condition. So most of our loved ones that might have access to regional center services, or if the person with a disability has access to Department of Rehabilitation services, for example, they might receive what's called job coaching, right? They get some type of job coaching support. And or they may get what's called job carving. And these are all kind of what Social Security considers subsidies and special conditions. So a subsidy is a support that's provided by the employer that includes but is not limited to fewer or reduced tasks, lower productivity or adjusted duties, extra, more frequent or longer breaks, extra supervision, and or this concept of job carving. So an example might be, and I'm just going to give just a silly example that comes to my mind, but if somebody, let's say, is working at a retail store, but they're not good with money, and they have a very hard time using the cash register because they're not going to be able to make the change, right? So that retail store says, okay, fine, you don't have to use the cash register and you don't have to deal with the cash transactions. Instead of doing that, we're just going to have you do the stocking, the go backs, the put backs, customer kind of service type stuff, but they're not going to have that person use the cash register, where all the other sales associates in that position must use the cash register, but this retail store is going to make an exception, if you will, right? And then they're going to remove that piece of the job for this person with a disability. So that's kind of a subsidy that the employer is providing. And a special condition is items or support from somebody other than the employer. So this is like the regional center or Department of Rehab funded job coach. The value of the job coach is deducted from the person's gross wages. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in practice. So if you're applying the value of a subsidy or special condition, it can be used to possibly bring down the worker's countable gross income below SGA level, which entitles them to a benefit. This is the formula that Social Security uses, and how it looks in practice is this. So let's say somebody is working 25 hours a week. That's 108 hours per month, and they get 20% job coaching support. And in this 20% job coaching support, the job coach is actually completing the technical aspects of the person's job because the person is unable to do it. So during this 20% of job coaching time, the job coach is essentially doing the work that the employee is supposed to be doing, that the employee with the disability is supposed to be doing. So they're performing kind of these technical job aspects. So if we look at the 108 hours per month that the person is working, we multiply it by the hourly wage of the person served. And I realize this example is under minimum wage. I just chose a number. So just disregard the fact that this is under minimum wage. I know it is. But let's say the person is getting minimum wage at the time, which was $15 an hour, okay? Their gross earned income is $1,620 per month. And the person gets 20% job coaching, which equals 22 hours for the month. And the person's hourly wage, not the job coach's hourly wage, but the hourly wage of the person with a disability, that's the $15 an hour. The job coach's subsidy value is $330. So if you subtract $1,620 minus $330 subsidy value, their countable earned income is $1,290, which is under substantial gainful activity. So this person would get their they'll get their $1,620 a month gross and work wages, plus they'll get their entire Title II check. So they're going to get their Social Security disability insurance check, their childhood disability benefit check, they're going to get their Title II check, plus they're going to get their gross earned income. And I want to mention here that's, some of the people that we work with, right, receives 100% job coaching. 100% job coaching does not completely zero everything out. What happens in a situation like that is Social Security will actually ask the supported employment provider to complete a like a work activity questionnaire where they're actually asking the employment agency what percentage of time they're actually performing the technical aspects of that person's job. So just because the person gets 100% job coaching supervision, it's not going to be entirely zeroed out. And Social Security is going to look into that a little bit further to figure out what exactly is the value of that subsidy. There's continuation of Medicare coverage. So if due to work earnings, the person is no longer eligible for a Title II benefit, their Medicare will continue for at least 93 months from the end of the trial work period, which is a little under 8 years. That person will continue to receive their Medicare coverage. And Social Security will actually provide a letter to the person stating how many months of continued Medicare coverage they're eligible to receive and from what time period. And this is the expedited reinstatement. It's the same concept that we talked about in the SSI benefit. So I'm not going to go through it, but it enables the person to go back on their benefit if they stop working above SGA level. The disability remains the same, and the person makes the request within 5 years of when the benefits end. For Title II benefits, you can apply online, and you can go through the entire application process online, provided that you're at least age 18 years or older. You're not currently receiving benefits on your own Social Security record. You're unable to work because of a medical condition, and you have not been denied disability benefits in the last 60 days. So if you have applied for Social Security disability benefits and you've been denied within the past 60 days, you can't go back online to apply until after that period. So as I was mentioning earlier, there are resources out there to help people understand the interplay between employment and how employment affects Social Security disability benefits. From this, I certainly don't expect anybody to all of a sudden become benefits planners because it's a very complicated topic. So we want people to utilize what's called a WIPA. It's a work incentive. It's work incentives planning and assistance. And this is an absolutely free service that's provided via a grant from Social Security Administration in Orange County. Our WIPA contract is through Project Independence, and they will go through an entire individualized, in-depth benefits counseling with you to talk about various scenarios with you, to go through if you're already working, what's going to happen to the benefits and what it's going to look like in the future. And they'll provide kind of this very individualized, in-depth counseling. They'll put it out on a report for you so you could even have it. So I want to encourage people, instead of trying to figure out the complicated web of navigating the work incentives on your own and the interplay of employment and benefits, utilize a WIPA. It's free, completely individualized. So we want people to today is to encourage people as much as possible to know there are work incentives out there that will enable you to work to the extent that you want to work and still collect benefits and still receive your insurance, right? So really that's kind of the takeaway that I hope people get from today's training. It's not trying to understand the complexities of it. It's to really understand that there are these great work incentives in place that could help people work and work, to the extent that they want to, and still keep their benefits and the insurance and all that stuff. And this is just a kind of a quick overview between the two benefits. You'll have it on your slide, so I'm not going to cover it. And that concludes the presentation. This is my email address, so if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to email me. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability, but I would encourage you first to contact WIPA.
Scarlett, thank you so much. We do have questions in the chat because I know I put some in. So do you have a few minutes to answer some questions?
Yeah, I'm a little worried, but yes, let's go.
Okay. The first question is are SSI and SSDI benefits taxable?
What do you mean, are they taxable?
Can you income tax?
I would encourage you to talk to an accountant or a tax attorney about that. That is not my area.
Okay, no problem.
I will tell you, however, that I told you earlier that SSI benefits, they pay based on living arrangement. So it is possible for an adult child with a disability to rent a room from a parent, right? And if that adult child with a disability rents a room from their parent and they have a room or lodger agreement, essentially a lease agreement, right? And that adult child pays rent to rent the room from their parent, that person with a disability will get a higher SSI check. They will get the independent living rate check. However, that parent then would have to claim the rental income that their adult child gives them for renting that room. And I'm sure that's taxable, but again, I'm not a tax attorney, so I'm not going to go into that.
Okay. All right. So here's some fun questions for you, Scarlett. Okay. So during not the training period, the first 9 months when you're on the Title II benefits and you're working, but once you kicked in the 5-year period, if you occasionally hit a SGA, is that considered you being at SGA at the end of it, or is it at the end you're at it for that month or for some number of months? How do they measure? Because people's salary vary, so how do they measure when you're
like during the trial work period?
After the trial work period, during the
during the extended period of eligibility,
yeah.
It's any month that's over SGA is a non-payment month. If you're under SGA, you get your Title II benefit.
But what would they consider at the end of that? Is it just if you ended the month? Is it like any number of those months that you were at SGA, or is it just being at SGA at the end?
Yeah, let me show you actually. If you can give me can we move on to the next question?
Yeah, let's go on to the next question.
So I could
Absolutely.
find the slide that I wanted to share earlier.
Yeah, okay. And then this is my next question, and then we'll move on to others. If you have a regional center PIP and you're on Title II benefits, would the PIP be considered a subsidy or not?
Yeah, absolutely. The PIP
Okay.
is considered a subsidy and or a special condition. Yes.
Okay. All right. This is from Peggy. To confirm, special conditions are only available for Title II benefits, not SSI.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Do you know the Ticket to Work program? If so, could you explain it, please?
Yeah. So the Ticket to Work program, it's basically kind of the same thing that we're talking about, right? But the Ticket to Work program through Social Security, it's a free and voluntary program, and it actually some school districts are utilizing Ticket to Work. Also, they'll some school districts, their adult transition program, they will have a Ticket to Work coordinator. And it's for people between the ages of 18 to 64 who get a Social Security disability benefit and they want to work. So the Ticket to Work program will connect that person with an employment network. It's called an EN, an employment network, and or Department of Rehabilitation, in order to help that person find a job and the ultimate goal of getting off of benefits.
So in a sense, it's a program that can help you, guide you through this process of employment and taking, they have access to WIPA and stuff. So it's kind of.
They're not doing WIPA services. The purpose of Ticket to Work is really to get that person employed through the employment networks or through the vocational rehabilitation agency to find that person meaningful employment.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll put the website in there.
Okay, my son is turning 18 years. Would he need to submit a new application for SSI? He was previously denied SSI due to my being over income.
Yeah, so under age 18, you have obviously learned that under age 18, they count the parents' income and resources. Once that person turns 18 years old, you need to submit, the person needs to submit a new application. So yes, you will have to submit a new SSI application after he turns 18 years old.
Thank
And
you.
you can't do it before, because if you do it before, they will count your income and resources.
Oh. Okay, someone's talking about.
Yeah, SSI, not taxable, makes sense because it's general revenue money.
Okay, if our child is under 18 but wants to work a part-time job, should we apply for these benefits now, or should we talk to a WIPA now?
I would talk to a WIPA. You could talk to a WIPA as many times as you want, which is the great thing about WIPA services. They'll actually kind of follow you even year after year. So I would certainly connect with a WIPA now. I would connect with Department of Rehabilitation now to try to get job development and job coaching services going. The WIPA could help you really understand that student earned income exclusion, provided that they're regularly attending school. So absolutely, I would talk to WIPA now and talk to Department of Rehab now.
Okay. Lots of people thanking you. So are there any, those were the questions in the chat. Are there any, first of all, Scarlett, you did a fabulous job of explaining this stuff. And
I laugh because I know how complicated it is.
It is so complicated, and I know I'm going to go back and watch this video over and over again.
I do want to show you just the tracking chart of what, this is what I did not include earlier. Hold on, let me just see if I could figure this out. Okay, so this is what a sample trial work period, extended period of eligibility tracking worksheet would look like. And this is courtesy, I will say, of Cornell University through their Employment and Disability Institute. So you'll see on the left-hand side of this, it's the years. So you'll see it's like, prior years. So 2010 through 2015. The T, that stands for the trial work period amount. So in 2010, the trial work period was 720. The substantial gainful activity, the S, is 1,000. And you'll see each year, those numbers they go up incrementally, right? They go up every year incrementally. But this is the very complicated process, of what a trial work period, extended period of eligibility, and grace and cessation months and expedited reinstatement looks like. So the months that the individual was paid their Title II benefit, it's hard for me to see it because it's my.
It must be the ones where there's a $sign below.
Correct. Yes. So June of 2010, through October of 2012, let's see, October of 2012, you see the dollar signs, right, and all of those. So the person completed their trial work period, and that's where it says TWP1, TWP2, TWP3, but that's the 9 trial work months that's non-consecutive in a 5-year period of time, right? But this person, they went through their trial work period months. Their 9th trial work period month was October of 2011, right? And during that time, yes, they received their Title II benefit, plus they got their $875 in work wages. So then extended period of eligibility, that 36-month EPE that starts the month after the trial work period. So then you'll see in the slides a little, the little dollar sign, right? And it shows the person continued to receive their Title II benefit plus their work wages this whole time, including through their cessation month, because in November of 2012, they earned over SGA. SGA was $1,010. The person earned in work wages $1,250. So because they were over their SGA, that's considered their cessation month. And then you have the 2 grace months, right? So Social Security continued to pay the person their benefits during that cessation and grace period. So the person didn't get any benefit starting in February of 2013 through February of 2014 because they were earning over SGA. And remember, I told you, Title II benefits are an all or none benefit. You're either going to get the benefit or you're not going to get the benefit. So during that period of time where you don't see that little dollar sign, they did not get their benefit. Something happened in March. So this person, maybe something happened in March, whatever the scenario is. And they only got $900 in work wages. That's what they earned in work wages. So they got their benefit for that month because they were under SGA. And then in April, everything resolved itself. Whatever happened, it resolved itself. And then starting in April of 2014, they were earning over SGA again. So they no longer got their Title II benefit. And you see in August, September, and October, they got their benefit amount. They got their Title II check because they were under SGA, right? And you see after EPE in this example, they continue to be under SGA. So they continue to receive their benefit. But then because the extended period of eligibility is over, it stopped, right? So in April of 2015, that's the first time then after the EPE that the person received over SGA. The person earned over SGA. So in April of 2015, that was the first time after EPE ended that they earned over SGA. At that point in time, their benefit was terminated. So they stopped receiving their benefit. May, June, July, they're not getting a benefit, right? But then they're still in that expedited reinstatement period that I told you about. And then you'll see in August, starting in August of 2015 on, their work wages decreased again because something happened. And then they started to get their Title II benefit again. And they started to, they're still getting their work wages and they're getting their Title II benefits paid. So you'll kind of see through that complicated web of what happens through extended
It's still
period of
confusing
eligibility.
because it makes you wonder what happens after the expedite. I think the expedited reinstatement is only for 6 months, right?
It's you'll get a provisional benefit for 6 months. And then during that period of time, they're determining whether you continue to be eligible for benefits based on your disability and things like that. And then your benefits will continue.
If they decide that you're
Correct.
still eligible.
That's correct, yes.
And then do you go back to the trial period again and the expedited reinstatement, or what status are you if they reinstate?
What do you mean?
Okay, so I'm sorry for everybody, and I know this is complicated. Okay,
Or,
that
maybe we could talk
same
off.
person, if they had the expedited reinstatement, so that's good for 6 months, they evaluate them, they say, okay, you're going to be able to continue to receive SSDI, then at that point,
Yeah, they could keep going back through this same cycle. So if they're terminated off of benefits because they started to get too much, because they started to earn too much benefits and they, got off benefits as a result of it, they can kind of go through this cycle with Title II benefits
yeah, so
indefinitely.
that I had heard, and I just wasn't sure that they would go back through the 9-month training and then the expedited reinstatement.
Yeah,
They would just
you'll go back through this
start the
process.
whole cycle because they've been re-blessed.
Yes.
they start all over. Okay, let's see. Are there other questions? I wanted to share something right now.
And I am available to answer questions during business hours. I see an email or a chat. So yeah, I'm happy to email. I'm happy to answer questions. If you want to email me, you have my email address. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. If you leave me a voice message, I will eventually call you back in like a day or two. But I will tell you that I much prefer email just because I can check my email at bizarre hours of the day, and I don't have to get back to you during business hours via an email. I could do it kind of at night, early in the morning, things like that. But phone calls, I'm limited because I could only call you during reasonable hours. And sometimes my patterns are not reasonable. So, emails are easier for me because then I can respond to you at 4 in the morning or 11 o'clock at night.
Okay, I'm going to share a flyer that is something that I worked on with, where did it go? Here. With Scarlett. Actually, Scarlett, I think, put together she put together the email and I turned it into a flyer. So somehow we worked together on this. So Scarlett and I are part of a committee that's part of the Orange County Local Partnership Agreement, where we're looking at problems that people experience when they're on SSI or Title II benefits and they're working. So anecdotally, we know of issues that people have run into, and we want to help drive change to simplify things for people and to make the process more smooth. And so we are in the process of collecting stories of people who might have run into problems. They might have received an overpayment letter. They might have had their medical insurance taken away, a variety of things. So this is a flyer. I put the link in the chat, and if you click on this link, I hope, or at least copy it, that'll take you to a survey that you fill out, and from that survey we're learning what people's experiences are. We've received over 600 surveys so far. So these are the different kinds of problems. You should be someone living in California and receiving one of these benefits. Yes, okay, I thought I saw a question. So let's see, hold on. I think I hit return, and there's the link to the flyer. I'll put a link to it when I send the email with the recording of this session, as well as the slides from this session in the next couple days. Okay, there's a little bit more in the chat. Are you available? Okay, are your guidelines basic across all states except for medical?
I did. I answered that in the chat.
You answered that in the chat. Okay.
Yes.
Well, are there any other questions before we let Scarlett go
Yeah, I just want, Judy, could I just make one comment for everybody?
Yeah, sure, Hunter.
Okay. Yeah, my son's almost 35 and he's never been employed, but I just wanted to make an overriding comment that of all the things that I think Scarlett mentioned, probably the most important that is often undervalued is record keeping, either on your computer or in paper version, whatever you're more comfortable with. Any forms that you fill out with applications for SSI, SSDI, all the way down, just make sure you make Xerox copies before you turn them in if you're doing the old paper version. And if you're going digitally, make sure you have them saved in a safe place, because every couple years, you're going to generally be asked through the mail to not reapply, but you're going to have to answer or fill out these reports at least every 2 to 3 years. And some of them are 28 pages, some are 15 pages. I just went through it for the 4th time. And if you don't have all your doctor's records and regional center records and DOR records and whatever you're going to need, it just adds major stress to the whole saga. So that's kind of my overriding comment for the night.
No, I think, Hunter, that's a great comment, and it goes deeper than what you're talking about, because your son's not working and it's kind of reapplying and having all those records. But if your child is working, or if they're working, you want to keep track of everything, especially because there are problems with the Social Security system, and they may not have all the records, especially if you've got like job coaching or things like that. People, and let's say 5 years passed, and then they decide that you've been overpaid, and you've got to go back 3-4 years and give all sorts of information, and that person may not even be working there anymore.
Yep.
So maintaining good records is, I don't know if the WIPAs tell you to do that, but we would tell you to do that, because you just don't know when you're going to get asked a question. And if you have it all maintained, then you're in a much better position to say, okay, I'm ready for that question, versus not having any of that information and then trying to recreate it in a very stressful situation. So I'm glad you said something, Hunter. That very good point.
Including records from your son or daughter's high school, and anything dealing with their disability. I would just, if you haven't thought about it, just find where they are and just make sure you know where they are.
Yeah. That's good. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Scarlett. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. This session will be preserved for eternity. So I know that Scarlett covered some very complex concepts that maybe right now weren't that important to you, but may be important to you in the future.